Hi, and welcome. I'm the Reverend Dr. Cheryl Gaver, Presbyterian minister of 3 congregations in Eastern Ontario. And thank you for joining us for this week's Puzzles in Faith. The question this week is, what about original sin? This is very much a Christian concept, and it goes back to the Bible. And it's basically saying that when Adam and Eve disobeyed God, they were cursed, kicked out of the Garden of Eden. Next week, we're going to be looking at whether it was a curse or a blessing. But they were kicked out of the Garden of Eden. And basically, everyone since then has been born in sin. The world is in sin. Animals are in sin. Creation has been twisted and deformed by the sin of Adam and Eve. The end result has been a very negative worldview. It's, the message for centuries is the world is a fallen place. It's basically, we have a responsibility to try to salvage it. And I'll be dealing with that question a bit later too. But everything we've done is already sinful. We're born in sin, we die in sin. There's nothing we can do. Life is horrible, except for God, Jesus, who saves us and has changed us. But even that, even with Jesus in our lives, we are still somehow sinful creatures. Why I say that we're still somehow sinful creatures is because we suffer, because our world is not perfect, because all these horrible things. But the emphasis has been that nothing is possible or nothing good is possible except for Jesus. That's used to be what we preached, especially in the 19th century, sort of this fire and brimstone. We're going to hell because we are so bad unless we come to Jesus, unless we're saved. So it's hell or Jesus. It's horrible or Jesus. And that's the kind of messages we preached. And we ran into problems, or I think one of the first places we ran into problems is when we encountered cultures that didn't have such a negative view of life. They're going, what? And we found that we had to teach them first how bad they were and then save them. So it's like knocking them on the head, making sure they fall to the ground and say, let me give you a hand up. And people weren't really attracted to that. Like, why do you have to knock me on the ground before you help me? It didn't quite make sense. For me, the change started in the 1970s, 1980s. And when I first encountered Matthew Fox, his writings, and it basically goes back to Genesis 1. The world is good. Creation is good. What God created is good. Human beings are very good. The world is good. Yes, we fell. Yes, there is, if you want, original sin is still around. The fact is that there are still problems on the earth. There are still bad things happening to good people. We still have volcanoes and earthquakes and forest fires, really bad things. So the world is not perfect. We're still reeling from those effects of original sin. But life is good. Some of that earlier sense of what was going on in Genesis 1 before the sin has continued, has been brought over. And so we find in, I'll say, 21st century Christianity, late 20th, early 21st century Christianity, much more the emphasis is on God's actions of love, of healing and reconciliation. The fact that we are all broken, that we have all been hurt. Yes, And we can say, yes, that goes back to original sin, but we don't have to hit people on the head and then say, I'll help you up. We say, yeah, life is good. But I bet you've been hurt somewhere in the past. I bet somewhere you've got this. But life is good. And we are worthwhile human beings. We are not, oh, mea culpa, I'm so bad, I'm so to blame. We're good because God has made us. And we are worthwhile human beings who have been given gifts by God. And that is something we have to hold on to. Now, you might say, wait a second, that's fine, but we're changing the Bible somewhat, are we? What about Judaism? Does modern day Judaism have the concept of original sin? Yes, there are traces, and there were traces there in Jesus's day, and we certainly find traces of in the Bible. But Judaism really doesn't have that sense of life being so bad. What it has is that God created us with two natures, Yetzer Hara, Yetzer Hatov, our bad nature, our good nature. And we have the choice of what nature we want to emphasize. Now, granted, most of us are going to go for the bad nature, okay? Judaism doesn't deny that, but we have the capability of also choosing the right things and the good things in life. Two natures. And it's our choice which one we choose. And in a sense, even in Christianity, we recognize we have the good impulse within us, and we also have the bad impulse. We know what we want and what we should want and should be doing, and we know what we are actually doing. We know we have those, the good conscience and the bad conscience fighting within us, the good nature and bad nature. We have that sense too. Judaism says you don't have to have original sin condemning everyone, every new child who's born. And that's a window onto original sin today. So once again, I'm the Reverend Dr. Cheryl Gaver, and thank you for joining us. Next week, we are going to look at what happened after Adam and Eve sinned, and did God curse them or did God bless them? Have a good week. Take care, stay safe, and God bless. Bye-bye.